Welcome everyone to RSRT's launch of the Rett Syndrome Global Registry, a parent-powered platform to advance genetic medicines. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm Jana von Hehn. I'm the Chief Scientific Officer at RSRT, and I head all of our clinical development initiatives, and I'm also the Director of the Rett Syndrome Global Registry. I'm so excited to welcome everyone today. Let's go ahead and get started. All right, so I'm joined today. I'm so excited to introduce today our guest speakers and our partners on the Rett Syndrome Global Registry. We have with us today Dr. Cary Fu. He's our clinical lead on the Rett Syndrome Global Registry and the CARE study. He's also the Rett Syndrome Director at Vanderbilt University Medical Center he's the Director of the Rett Syndrome Clinic at Vanderbilt University Medical Center. We also have Dr. Bernhard Suter with us today. He's also a clinical lead on the Rett Syndrome Global Registry and the CARE study. He's the director of the Bluebird Circle Rett Center at Texas Children's Hospital and Baylor College of Medicine. And then we're also joined today by Andrea Rogers. She oversees our registry project on the Matrix platform, and she is the Vice President of Project Management at Across Healthcare. So thank you guys for partnering with us on this project. It's such a pleasure to have you join us today. All right, so let's just go through the agenda here quickly. I'll tell you what we're going to cover today. I will briefly introduce the Rett Syndrome Global Registry, then I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Fu and Dr. Suter, and they're going to share with you some of our early insights from what I like to call our VIPs, our very important pioneers that have helped us in this pre-launch phase of the registry. Then Andrea is going to take us through a demo of the Rett Syndrome Global Registry. Then we'll do a quick little wrap up, and we will close with a Q&A session. All right, so to get started, I just want to introduce our Cure Rett initiative. This is our combining untapped resources to expedite targeted therapeutics. And this is an initiative that we started when we stepped back and we looked at the Rett syndrome research landscape. We realized that there were really two huge sources of information that we could be utilizing to help cure Rett syndrome that we weren't tapping into. And so we wanted to make use of that. And so what we saw was that parents have a lot of valuable information that they carry around with them all day long on what it's like to live with and care for an individual with Rett syndrome. And there really is no way to tap into that information and use it to not only improve care or advance research or support clinical development. So we wanted to try to find a way to do that. And we also realized that there were comprehensive medical records that just sit around at doctors' offices that also aren't being used. And so we realized we wanted to figure out how to take advantage of these. And so the first question we asked was, how do we access these types of information? And we realized we needed to build some databases, and we needed to log this information in a research-friendly way so we could use this to improve care and advance research and aid clinical development. And we also wanted to build some databases that also gave back to parents so you could use this information at your fingertips to help improve your life and the life of your loved one. So out of this effort, we launched the Rett Syndrome Global Registry, which is a parent-reported data set of what it's like to care for someone with Rett syndrome. And under our Cure Rett initiative, this is called our Share study, where parents are sharing their experience. And here we are consolidating information on development, on medical history. We're looking at symptom evolution, how things change over time. And we're starting to log different care strategies like medication use, therapies, assistive devices, those types of things. And we're aggregating that information into a data set that we can then use to support research. And on the other side, on the medical record side, we also launched the CARE study, which is where all the medical care gets consolidated and aggregated. Now, we launched this part of the Cure Rett initiative earlier this year, so we're not going to talk about that on today's webinar, but you can go back and look at that webinar another time. Today, we're going to focus on the Rett Syndrome Global Registry, or the SHARE study. All right, so when we wanted to launch this registry, the first thing we did was we wanted it to support clinical development. We wanted to be able to use the information that parents have to help cure Rett syndrome. And so we leaned on a number of different individuals. We set up a number of different committees, and it was a really fun process developing the Rett Syndrome Global Registry. So we've been partnering with Dr. Suter and Dr. Fu for a long time now. We've also leaned on a number of other Rett clinicians. We also convened a parent committee, and this committee was really helpful in helping us understand what types of information parents care about learning about and what would help them care for their loved one with Rett more efficiently. And so we had a great parent committee. We also leaned on a psychometric analyst who could help us design the questions and the answers in the system to more closely align with what you would see in a clinical trial. And we also worked with a genetic counselor to make sure we were capturing the right information out of the genetics reports. And we leaned on a number of other advocacy groups that have already had successful registries. And so we wanted to learn from their mistakes and capitalize on their successes. And this is just a small list of the different groups that we leaned on pretty hard, but it was a great process. And last but not least, we had a really great biopharma advisory committee. And since the registry was initially designed to support drug development specifically, or curative therapeutics in particular, we worked really closely with these groups to make sure that we were collecting information in the registry that would directly help them with their clinical development programs. And so that was really exciting. So our major goal was to create value for these three different groups. And so for families, we wanted to create something that was very inclusive, very accessible, and gave actionable insights back so people could work with the information that they were seeing to improve their care. For biopharma, our ultimate goal is to use the data in our registry to stand in as a placebo control. And that's a really high bar to try to meet. So we've worked really hard working with FDA, meeting the guidelines and the different regulatory requirements so we can use our registry information for that purpose. And then from a researcher's perspective, we wanted to be able to build a data set that was very large, very high quality, so we could start to learn about different care strategies maybe in other countries and the way, Rett syndrome evolves differently around the world. And we wanted to have an infrastructure that could be really flexible. So as the needs of the field change, we can accommodate those changes and run studies within the registry itself. And last but not least, we also wanted to be able to link the information in our registry to all the other studies that people are participating in to try to make that data as useful as possible and as broad of an application as possible. So when we were trying to decide how we were going to launch the registry and how it was going to be accessed, we found Matrix. And Matrix is a shared platform to help care for and cure rare diseases. This is an online data platform that's part of a larger group called Across Healthcare. And they serve a number of other rare diseases, not just Rett syndrome, but a number of other rare diseases. They host a number of different registries. And what we love most about the platform is its flexibility. So it can serve patients directly, it can support caregivers, siblings, other family members. They already have these great tools built into the system that include tracking symptoms and activities and then the ability to actually see trends and change over time. So as you enter your data over multiple days or weeks or months, you can start to see how things are changing, which is super cool. And it has this ability to share your information. So if you want to share your data with your doctors or other people, you're able to do that as well. And one of the things we like as well is the fact that you can access the full platform from any mobile device. So if you have a computer or an iPad or an Android phone, whatever you have, you can access the full platform without an app. So you can just go in at any point and get whatever you need. All right, so when you go in, what can you expect as a parent? It's essentially a series of online surveys that allows you to share your experience with Rett syndrome in a very structured and specific way. And all it requires is internet access. You need to create an account, and then you need to have your loved one needs to have a Rett syndrome diagnosis or an MECP2 mutation. If you don't know the mutation details, that's fine. And then you can just fill out the survey questionnaires and add your experience on whenever it's convenient for you. So if that happens to be at night, at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night before you go to bed, that's perfectly fine. And we have some optional things that we'll hope you'll take advantage of. There's a number of tools that Andrea will show us in a little bit. Occasionally you will get a request to add some additional information because we want to track symptoms and how they change over time. So if you get an email request for more info, please go ahead and add that. And since we're just getting out of the gate with the Rett Syndrome Global Registry, we would love to get your feedback because we really want this platform to be useful to you as a parent. So please let us know how we can improve it. And then in terms of sharing your experience, this is just some examples of the type of information that we're capturing in the data set. So you'll see it when you go through. I'm not going to cover it here. All right, so that's enough of an intro. I'm going to go ahead and now turn it over to Cary and Bernhard to go through the data that we've learned from our very important pioneers to this point. So go ahead and take it away, guys.
All right, Jana, thank you very much for having me on the call. I hope everyone can hear me loud and clear. I'm just going to present a couple of examples of what can be found in the Rett Syndrome Global Registry. So to start out with, we wanted to show what, the constituency of the very important pioneers is that we have enrolled so far. So we have country information on 268 individuals from 34 countries, and you can very nicely see that the United States only makes about a third of those. There are many participants from around the globe that have joined this Rett Syndrome Global Registry, such as Colombia, Argentina, Brazil, Korea, Japan, Turkey, many, many other countries. And on those from those 268 participants, we actually have variant information or mutation information on 234 participants. And you can nicely see the mutation breakdown here. You can see that the 8 most common mutations, as we would expect, are very prominent. And then a large group of other mutations are captured as well under the group of other. And one of the most important questions we posed in the beginning is we wanted to try to see if the information we have collected is really a good reflection of the Rett population in general. So we were very excited to see that when we compared our information in the relative proportion of these common mutations with that that is found in RettBase, a very long-standing database that catalogs all MECP2 mutations. You can pretty much see that the relative distribution is very, very similar in our pilot group and what is recorded in RettBase. And this is a really nice finding, as it suggests that the information that we have may be a good representation of Rett overall already. Then, in addition to the genetic information, the mutation information, or variant information, we're also obviously collecting further information, such as current symptoms and what individuals with these MECP2 variants have as symptoms. And you can see here that out of the 248 parents who entered current symptom information, the most common symptoms are symptoms of communication, repetitive hand movements, mobility, and hand use. And that is maybe not so surprising, as these are also the hallmark features of Rett and would be something that you would certainly want to see as the top hitters in a registry such as this. You can also see that we capture other important comorbidities quite well, such as sleep disturbances, epilepsy, if a little bit more down, nutrition difficulties, GI issues, also breathing issues, teeth grinding quite prevalent up there. So we do capture all the important signs and symptoms of Rett syndrome. And then, as part of the global registry, one important goal of ours is obviously that we want to really drill down to understand symptom burden and quality of life, especially when we have the sister project, the CARE study that is collecting medical record information. We would like to see how those two would relate to each other, right? For instance, if we were to see a difference in a different level of medical care in the medical record, we can then correlate that with what it means to families on this data set. And so on this slide, we just as an example, we pulled out nutrition and eating difficulties, and in order to look how that actually impacts symptoms at home. You can see that it is not the most common symptom. It still occurs in 44% of patients, but it is quite prevalent. And if you go and you dig deeper and really try to understand this, you will ask, how severe are these nutrition and eating difficulties? And you can see that the answers are really skewed towards the more heavy end, the moderate, severe, even extreme end. And if you look to try to understand, okay, these are very severe, how often do they occur? However, you see that they occur pretty much daily, which is obviously a very, very important piece of information if you were to try to develop a treatment. And then finally, you can also hone in and look how, if you take these facts together, the daily and the severity rating, how disruptive do they become? And you can see that there, and parents actually reported this as being even more disruptive for their daily life, heavily skewing towards highly and extremely. And finally, what the registry enables us to do is we do not only collect an overall percentage of 44% in whom these nutrition and eating disorders, for instance, are prevalent, because that is not an accurate reflection. We can then dive down into age groups and see that really the 44% is only reflected in the 0 to 2-year-old groups, but different prevalences occur along the aging process, which again is extremely important if you want to have some prognostic element to analysis of these symptoms in Rett syndrome, and when it becomes most important to intervene, at least as based on prevalence. And with that, I will hand the mic over to Dr. Fu.
Thank you very much, Dr. Suter, and thank you, Jana, for having me as part of this webinar. I really appreciate it. It's very exciting to be part of this official launch of the Global Registry. All right, so this is just another example. We're moving on, next slide, of some of the data that we're gathering through the registry that's been contributed by the early pioneers thus far. And this is a very important aspect in particular because, as you all know, epilepsy is a very, very frequent neurological comorbidity in Rett syndrome. And so we are hopeful that we'll be able to make use of this aspect of the registry, help us better understand this part of Rett syndrome and hopefully help better manage it. And as you can see, out of the 248 pioneers so far, we can see that the majority of individuals have been diagnosed with either epilepsy or Rett spells. And this is not surprising. We'll talk about in a second. And then of the types of seizures that they have, the majority have what we call motor seizures and or staring seizures, but it's a small minority with staring seizures only. And this is reflected in what we know from information from the natural history study that ran in the United States for over a decade and a half. But what's interesting, as you can see, is that only a tiny number, right, have Rett spells only. And this kind of reflects the inherent difficulties in parsing the two out. And hopefully we can use this data to better understand, because we are also gathering data about whether or not EEG was done to try to tease things out, because Rett spells and epileptic seizures can look very similar. as many parents, I'm sure, have experienced. And it can be hard for physicians without EEG to tell the difference between the two. It can be hard for parents to tell the difference between the two. And so a lot of times for physicians, we will just err on the side of calling something a seizure, even though it may be a Rett spell, just so we don't miss anything. But it would be very helpful to know whether an EEG was done to try to tease this out. Now, I should point out that the percentages here of people that have been diagnosed with epilepsy are a little bit less than what we would expect from the overall population based on what we learned from the natural history study. But I think part of that could reflect differences in global diagnostic practices, but then also thus far the contributors from the early pioneers, that ages did skew a little bit younger, and we know that epilepsy doesn't tend to peak in its presentation in Rett syndrome until a little bit later in childhood, and so that could also be why we're seeing a little bit of lesser percentage of prevalence of epilepsy in this early pioneer population than we would anticipate. But again, there's a lot of promise here for helping us again better understand this comorbidity, and so it's very exciting. And so this is, I think, an area, this next slide, talking about the different therapies that individuals with Rett syndrome are getting. I think it shows a very important aspect of how this can be very useful for families when they come back in with this sort of data. And again, this is also a prime example of why contribution to this data pool is very important. As you so out of the 248, we have 134 contributing data to the about therapies. And so again, whenever possible, if you get those emails about completing data, it's very helpful to contribute, because you can see this is kind of this shared data pool, because this is an area that we don't actually do a lot of systematic research in it. So it's nice to know what seems to work for the different individuals. You can see there's the main therapy modalities that are used in kids with Rett syndrome: physical therapy, speech therapy, music therapy. And the greener the circle here, the more perception of effectiveness parents are reporting. And you can see that hydrotherapy seems to have the most green, so moderately to very effective in terms of improving overall quality of life for a child with Rett syndrome. And similarly, music therapy is perceived to have a lot of benefit. And so these, again, are domains that, we can take this information and as clinicians too, and provide, valuable feedback to parents on where to target. If they were trying to target certain, most effective use of time, that these could be potentially two domains that would be important to incorporate into a child's, weekly, therapeutic intervention regimen. So again, it's very exciting to see this sort of data and coming together. And again, we'll be able to make use of this on the clinical side, and also hopefully for families to help advocate for their own, for their child's care. And finally, this last slide here, this is actually data from the care component of the Cure Rett initiative. So this is actually data that's been mined from patient medical records. So this is not yet, but this is something that we would be able to do with the family contributed data. And this is just looking at over time developmental milestone acquisition, which is very nice to track, because we do like to look back. There's this perception that early developmental milestones are always going to be normal up to about 6 months of age. But it's good to know, and also good to track long term, when things are actually, being acquired across, the spectrum of individuals with Rett syndrome, and then also to be able to track losses and regains over time. And so we can use data analytics tools to be able to visualize that. And you can see here the gray line is the ability to use verbal communication. And as would be expected, this is very low. So the higher the line goes, the greater the percentage of individuals at that certain age, which is on the bottom line. That's age going across. And I think that first one is 100 days, and that next one is 1,000, and then 10,000 days. Obviously, we would convert that to months and years, and so very few individuals are getting verbal communication, which is not unexpected. And in contrast, developing the ability to babble, which is that kind of turquoise dark blue line in the middle there. We can see a lot of individuals, over half, by the time they're around 6 months old, when we would expect, are getting babbling ability. But again, this is just an example of what will be possible once we start to analyze more the data that's being contributed in this registry, in the share component of Cure Rett. And again, it's all very exciting, and so the goal is to be able to take this, to help us with making clinical decisions in the future and research decisions, but then also to be able to give back to the families in terms of tracking progress and advocating for their child's care. All right, so I think that was my last slide, and now I'd like to hand the presentation over to Andrea, who's going to talk to you more about the actual inner workings of the registry platform and how to really dig into it and make use of it. Andrea?
Thank you, Dr. Fu, and thank you, Jana, for having me. I have the privilege today of talking about the Rett Syndrome Global Registry, the software that we're using to capture the parent and caregiver reported data around your loved one, or the data for yourself, to be able to collect the data to be able to produce these wonderful insights that we've seen. So on the Rett Syndrome Global Registry page, you see a screenshot of it here. There are two options to join the registry and then to log in if you already have an account. So I'm going to kind of walk you through the process of obtaining an account, logging in, and some of the basic navigation, and then I will break out and actually show you some of the registry live. So continuing on, if you don't have an ID for the registry, you would click on the link to join the registry, and you'll be presented with a request access page. So all you have to do is fill out a little bit of information indicating your name, your email address, and some other pieces, and then we will send an email with you to click on a link to set up your password to be able to access the registry. One thing I want to point out, down at the bottom, you're to check the type of account that you're setting up. And it's just really important, if you're going to be entering information for someone else, only click the caregiver participant option. Once you log in and create your account, then you'll be able to add the person that you will be entering information for. So once you complete your access request and you get your password set up, you will be able to link over to the login page, and you'd simply log in. A couple things I wanted to point out on this page: the registry is available in multiple languages. You would simply click up in the upper right near the globe icon, and you'll be able to change the language that all of the surveys and the registry are presented in. And one other thing, if you forget your password, you can click a link here to reset it for yourself, or if you have any issues, you can always contact support, which I'll show you at the end. So once you get logged in this particular example, this is a fictitious person, not a real one, who's setting up a caregiver account. You'll just acknowledge the terms of use, and the system's going to kind of walk you through the steps on the left of what you need to complete. So initially, you'll acknowledge the terms of use. You'll be able to read through the consent, but you won't actually complete it until you add your patient. So again, I'm talking about a caregiver logging in here. So they'll be able to read through, acknowledge it, complete some general information and demographics about themselves, and then they'll be able to add a patient. So it's really simple. Once the caregiver gets logged in, see kind of the left navigation here, there will be a button at the top of the dashboard to click to add patient. And this is where you're entering the information on the person who you will be entering information for. And then once you add the patient, or if you're logging in as a patient yourself, then the workflow becomes the same. So you'll see again, down the left, it's going to walk me step by step through what I need to complete initially the first time I log into the system. So you'll go through, you'll be able to read the informed consent and complete that. You won't be able to do anything else in the platform until you complete that consent. So once that's done, you'll enter some general demographic information about the patient, either yourself or someone who you're entering information for. You'll be able to, or you'll be prompted to upload any genetic tests that you currently have, and then you'll be presented with a series of surveys. Again, the steps will be checked off. All you have to do is as you complete each item, just keep clicking next and it will walk you through, and you'll see check marks down the left as you complete the mandatory items. And one word, we would like you to complete all the steps in the initial workflow the first time you log in, but if you can't and you have to leave and come back the next day, when you log back in, it will take you right back to that place that you left off to facilitate you completing those mandatory steps. A word about the genetic test upload screen. You can upload as many documents here as you have. Sometimes there are different genetic tests are performed in different facilities. Whatever you might have, you can upload whatever documentation. Keep clicking the blue upload button and you'll be able to select the documents to upload. Once you're done, you just click complete and then you'll move to the next step. There is a checkbox here at the bottom. If you don't have your genetic test report to upload at that time, you can check the box and move forward, and you'll be able to upload it later on once you get into the main application. So once you get all the way through that mandatory workflow, it will open up in the main part of the application. Your navigation will be here down the left. Right now, I'm looking at my Surveys and Studies tab. And the surveys and studies are broken into two parts, new and in progress surveys, and then completed ones. So new and in progress are the ones you haven't started yet, or you got part way through and left and you want to come back and continue. And then of course the completed ones that you completed initially will be on that completed tab. Periodically, we'll prompt you to update your survey information. We'll send an email letting you know that you've got a new survey out there to complete. You'll simply log in, go to Surveys and Studies, and those new surveys will be here on this New and in Progress tab, and you just click Start to begin. A word about the completed surveys. There is a menu over to the right of your consent and any completed surveys that give you a couple of different options. You just click those three dots, otherwise known as the kebab menu, and it will present a little menu here. You can view your prior responses. You can analyze, which allows you to see your responses compared to others in the community. And you can also edit to update your survey. I'm going to show you the analyze really quick, but then I'm also going to show you this live once I get to the end of my slides. What Analyze does is it allows you to take any question in any of the surveys and drill down and see how your responses compare to everybody else in the community with the same diagnosis. So in this particular view, I've selected the anxiety question and the question about approximately how often does it occur. I can see that I responded 2 to 3 times a week, and I can see the breakdown of how others in the community with the same diagnosis responded. Same thing with the impact and how frequent, et cetera, the questions or the symptom occurs. So this is really nice to be able to kind of compare how your responses are with others with the same diagnosis. The next section down, after we get past surveys, you'll have an ability to enter some information in what we call the patient tools area. So information around conditions, allergies, labs and tests, you can enter data there. There's a really nice symptom and activity tracker, which is what I'm showing on this screen. You can build kind of a menu of the typical symptoms you experience on a daily basis. And then all you have to do when you come in is just click the blue plus sign, and you'll be able to enter some basic information about your experience with that symptom during that date and time. And as you start to capture more data, you can actually plot points against each other. So if you're thinking, I tend to have this particular symptom when this occurs, if you're tracking your information in here, you'll be able to plot it and see potential correlation between the items, which then can be shared with your clinician. So that's kind of a neat thing to track. There's also journaling. You can create whatever categories you would like and journal to, again, just capture that information that you want to share later with clinicians or other interested parties. The documents section allows you to upload things like labs or genetic tests or anything pertinent that you might want to store with your record or potentially share with a clinician. The sharing center allows you to create a link that can be used once or multiple times. There's a link with a secure PIN code. It can be provided to the school or a specialist or a babysitter. They don't have to have an ID in the system. They can click on that link and enter the PIN code, and they'll be able to see the information that you have chosen to share with them. Any subset of the information you see down the left-hand navigation here. And then lastly, there's a resource center that will have information about Rett syndrome and the registry that you'll be able to access resources from. One of the newer features we've added is called Refer a Friend. This allows you to easily invite others to join the registry. You simply click on the Refer a Friend link, enter their name and email address. You can choose the language that the email is sent in, and this will launch an email to them, providing a link to be able to join the registry. And lastly, if you need help, there's a quick link, Contact Us button at the bottom, and you click on that and you can immediately send an email to the registry coordinator, and you'll be able to get help with whatever you need related to the registry. So with that, I am going to share my screen here. Jana, I am not able to exit, so I think I'm just going to turn it over. Oh, there we go.
Try it now.
Thank you. All right, are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. So this is a test account that I have set up, and I have already logged in, so you can see basically my dashboard and some general information, some of the things I just showed you. But I was going to show you a little bit about how to navigate in the surveys and studies. So like I was showing you, we have a new and completed surveys tab. So I'm going to come over here to my completed surveys and go to that kebab menu here and click the Analyze button. And what that'll allow me to do is it will show me all kinds of questions that I had responded to over here. I'm going to go ahead and pick anxiety, which I was showing you earlier. And what you can do then is I've selected the first question under anxiety. And by default, it selects my disease that I had selected when I set up my account. And it will show me that response of mine compared to how everybody else responded to that question. And you can do this with any question on any survey just to get an idea of how you compare to others in the community who responded to the same question. All right. So I will stop share and turn it back over to Jana. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Andrea. That was great. Let me go back to the deck here, and we will just continue. Can somebody just confirm what you can see? See the deck?
You can see the contact slide, yes.
Okay, great. Let me just move forward here. Oops, all right. So, all right. So thank you so much for that wonderful demo, Andrea. It's just fascinating to watch you navigate through the system. And a huge thank you to all of our VIPs who've put their data in so far and allowed us to get to this point where we can actually launch the registry with this cool data set, and we're already starting to see some initial insights. So to just kind of recap what Dr. Fu and Dr. Suter shared with us earlier today, it looks like from the mutation profiles that we've collected that our data set may already be representative of the larger Rett population, which is really exciting to be, there this early in the process. We see that teeth grinding, muscle tone, epilepsy, and sleep disturbances are quite high on the list in terms of symptoms that people are dealing with. We showed you a very interesting example of how nutrition and eating difficulties seem to be skewed towards the more difficult, the more problematic type of symptoms that families are dealing with. And I hope you can get a sense of how that type of information is informative and can help pharmaceutical companies with their clinical development programs. We've also seen that epilepsy is a current symptom in about 57% of patients, and we're really interested in drilling down into this a little bit more to learn more about what this means in terms of what drives families to go to their clinicians and try to correlate this information more closely with the other data sets that we have. And I thought it was really cool to see the effectiveness information that we're able to capture in the registry. We showed you today the effectiveness of just some of the therapies, but we are collecting that information on all types of interventions. So diets, assistive devices, equipment, medications, things like that. So we're hoping that this can be a really useful tool for families, and that these types of findings can help guide your discussions when you go meet with your care teams. Now, every study has limitations, and this is no exception. Our data set is still very small. The findings that we're showing you today, these may not be representative yet. We may find as we get more participation that we're missing questions or we're not asking them in the right way. There's still a number of things that can happen before this registry really meets its mark in terms of it being perfect. And, this entire registry is relying on parent memory, except for the genetics report. And we know that that can sometimes be inaccurate. So just like other studies, this study in itself is not perfect. And what we need you guys to do, and one of the solutions is to participate more, right? And grow the database with us. So we need to get our numbers up. Please participate. Please come back and add your additional symptom change data over time. Please invite your friends. And if you're in the US, please participate in the CARE study too, because the more information that we have across the population, the more utility we can get out of that information and the faster we can help cure Rett syndrome. So I just want to close on this one slide, which really talks about the attributes of the registry that make it different from other studies and really highlight some of the key elements of why we're really excited about launching this resource, and we hope that you are too. So compliance with FDA requirements supports the broadest utility possible for this type of data. So not only are we able to help parents and advance research, but pharmaceutical companies can also use this data as well, and that we're really excited about that. We have a genetic counselor verifying the mutation data, which allows us to ensure high data quality. We are able to centrally review the data. We're also able to make updates and changes to the data with audit trails, which is really important from a data integrity perspective. And these are all things that pharmaceutical companies need and FDA requires. And we're also able to collect information over time, over shorter periods of time than typical registries. And this allows us to collect information on relevant timelines to match trials, so we can actually do that one-to-one comparison of patients in our registry versus patients in a therapeutic trial. The research arm that we've built in allows tremendous flexibility, so we'll have the ability to adapt and change as the field's needs change over time. We'll be able to conduct additional studies. We can add in biosensor analyses. We can do all kinds of things. This is really an exciting place to be with today's technology. And because it's global and in 9 languages, it's really inclusive. And we're hoping that this lowers the barriers of participating in the study and overcomes some of those challenges with clinic-based studies. And then, as you've already seen with our Pioneer pre-launch data set, we're already able to show some immediate insights that can be useful for families. So before I turn it over to our Q&A session, I just hope we've been able to show you today that our Cure Rett initiative is flying full speed ahead. We're super excited about what we're going to be able to accomplish with these studies. We are now in a position where parents have valuable knowledge that is now captured. And we also are able to capture that same valuable information from the medical records. So our goal with the Cure Rett initiative at this point is to grow these data sets. And we're also focused on the next phase of the implementation process, which is to make the data sets and the summaries accessible to parents, for research, and to pharmaceutical companies to actually aid their clinical development. And we want to continue to create more and more tools to make this useful for families and give you guys something that you can work with to improve the lives of your loved ones. So if you aren't part of the Rett Syndrome Global Registry, please consider joining today. You can just take a picture of the QR code and it will take you to the account request page. If you'd like to learn more, you can find that on our website at reverserett.org on the research tab. And if you're in the US, please also consider joining the CARE study as well and get your medical records to do the similar heavy lifting that the Rett Syndrome Global Registry will be doing. Okay. So I don't know if my team had anything else that you guys wanted to say as we transition to the Q&A here. No? Okay, great. All right, so let me open it up. If you guys have questions on the webinar, please go ahead and put them into the Q&A. We can start to address those. And we have a couple of questions in here already. So the first one I see is, is there compensation for attending or for joining the registry? And the answer is no. There's no compensation for joining at this point, and that's covered in the informed consent as well. The next question I see is it possible to register in Spain? And the answer is yes. You're able to register in Spain if you'd like. All you have to do is get on the internet and create an account. And once you go through the informed consent, if you're comfortable with the information that's in there, you're able to join the registry. Our next question is, and please chime in to the rest of my team if you guys want to hop in on any of these. So the next question I see is, what are the potential risks or challenges associated with the registry? I can take this one unless Andrea, you want to take it. All right, so there's no physical visit associated with the study. There's no blood draws. There's nothing like that. So there's no physical risks associated with participating. The only major risk, and I wouldn't say it's major, but the only real risk is potential loss of privacy. So when you sign up, you're putting your name and your information in. If there was a security breach, it's possible that that information could get stolen. However, there are a number of checks and balances in place to prevent that, and Matrix has a lot of security measures in place. And we have tried to mirror our registry off of clinical trial databases, which also have high levels of security. So I don't know, Andrew, if you want to add anything to that.
No, that covered everything. Thanks.
Okay. And then the challenges that I see are just trying to make this as useful as possible and being able to adapt, as things change. And so that's one of the challenges that I see, but I think we're well positioned with the flexibility of the Matrix platform itself to make those changes. So I think we will be pretty, we'll be able to make changes whenever we need to pretty easily. Okay. And the link to the registry, I hope you guys were able to capture that with the QR code. It's also on our website, so please go there if you need to see it again, or you can send us an email, and we'd be happy to send you the link. All right, another question. Would it be possible for the links portrayed in the video recording to be provided after the webinar? Yes, this information will live on our YouTube channel. And you will be able to go back and review it at your leisure, and we'll make sure that the links are accessible on our website as well. Okay, here's a good question. How will joining the registry help people outside the US, specifically Canada? So this is a great question, and we really hope that everyone joining the registry, that this data can help everyone. Our goal is not to keep the data, and do nothing with it. We really want to share this information, and if people have research questions that they want to address, that they can get access to this data and use that to improve care in any country. We will have ways that if you want to just get information on participants from Canada, you'll have the ability to do that. If you want a larger population, you can do that as well. The data sharing aspect of the registry is not built out yet. That's what we're hoping to do next, is make this accessible for research and for pharma companies. But we're hoping that the information that's captured here can help everyone. That's our goal. Okay, here's another question. How do you group patients? In other words, do you separate boys from girls, deletion versus duplication? So in the summaries that you saw today, everyone was included, but we do have ways to separate that out. So you can filter down on specific aspects of the data. If you want to look at females, if you want to look at males, if you want to look at specific mutation types or geographic areas, or you just want data on patients who have a certain symptom or a certain symptom profile, you'll be able to get all of that in the analysis if you're a researcher. Okay, safety and security of personal information that we provide. That's a good question. So the example that Andrea showed you was a fake person. That was a test person when we're going in and testing the system. But when in the real database, all of the data that's associated with a particular patient has a number associated with it. It doesn't have a name or any other type of identifying information associated with it. So when the information is used for research purposes, all you get is that ID number. You don't know who it belongs to. You don't know anything else personal about that person. And so that's called de-identification or pseudo-anonymization. So the data essentially becomes anonymized. You don't know who it belongs to. And so that's a very standard practice in clinical trials. That's a standard practice in most databases like this. And so we're also following that as well. So the only time that you would have to worry about your data being seen is if there was some kind of security breach, which, as I mentioned, is we're protecting against on multiple levels and at the same standards that you would expect for a data set like this. Oh my gosh, we have so many questions. Do you guys want to jump in? I feel like I'm droning on here. Or should I keep going? Okay. Next question. How will it accelerate the development of new genetic medicine? So that's a great question. So when we meet with companies come to us often that are interested in Rett syndrome therapeutic development, and they ask us questions like, where are the patients? What type of mutations do they have? What symptoms do parents care about? What are the worst symptoms? When do they occur? Are they young? Do they occur when patients are older? And so we're trying to answer all of those questions in the registry. And so the goal is, if we can consolidate that information and we can just say, here, just go look in the Rett Syndrome Global Registry. Here's all the answers to the questions that you have. Then they don't have to take their time to come ask us. They have that information at their fingertips, and they can sit down and design a clinical development program with all of that information already available to them. And that saves months and potentially years of research trying to figure out what they're going to do. We're just going to be able to hand it to them on a silver platter. And that's really exciting. All right, will the website be available in Arabic? Oh, that's a good question. Andrea.
So we have had a number of groups interested in Arabic. We're hoping to add that sometime in the next 6 months. So
that's great. Yeah, so we'll have to do a translation into Arabic, but if Matrix offers it, we will try to offer it as well. That's fabulous. Okay, should we translate the attached medical documents before you upload it to the registry? That's a really nice thing to do. We would love that if you do that. You don't have to do that. We can also translate it on this side. But thank you. Thanks for offering. It doesn't matter. You can do whatever's easier for you. As I mentioned, the recording will be available on our YouTube channel, and you can get all the information that we've covered here will be available soon, very soon. Is there going to be a link? Is there going to be a link after this study to participate in the survey, like a questionnaire? Yeah, so that's basically what the registry is. When you sign in, it's just a question. It's just a series of different questionnaires that you'll answer as you go through. Let's see. How do we answer questions about feeding if the girl is G-tube dependent? So we do have questions in there on how the girls eat if they're fed through a G-tube or they eat orally. So you just answer the questions and then we can see. But just do your best. But if you're going through and you feel like we're missing something or we're not capturing something that you think we should add, please let us know, because we can edit the registry. Like I said, it's very adaptable. So please let us know if you think we've missed something.
And Jana, there will be a field that basically they check and it flags it as G-tube feeds, right? That's very important. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes, we do have that.
Like you just said. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay, please review the citizen for info compared to the global registry. So the citizen study is the second half, essentially, of our Cure Rett initiative. And the Rett Syndrome Global Registry captures the parent experience, where you just answer questions based on your experience as a parent, where the citizen care study collects medical records. So you consent for your medical records to be collected by citizen, and then they will go through the medical records and aggregate, key information about Rett syndrome and put that into a database. So the sources of information for the Rett Syndrome Global Registry and the citizen care study are totally different. One is specifically based on medical records, and one is specifically based on the parent experience. So they are different, and you do need to sign up for both studies if you want to participate in both. Okay. The recording for this webinar should be available relatively soon. I would say in a couple of days. It shouldn't be too long, and we'll try to hurry up. Let's see. There's no payment for participating in the registry. That's a question that's come up. I see that a couple of times here. There's no compensation for participating at this point. It's just generosity and hoping we can come together to help Cure Rett as a community.
Jana, I was wondering, as I look through the list here as well, can individuals, doctors from the outside, contact the registry if they have questions or concerns about the specific diagnosis, be it MECP2 duplication syndrome versus Rett syndrome, or have medical questions, whether this is an accurate diagnosis? Is there a channel that they can actually contact you and you can potentially, further send these questions further along to us or similar?
No, it's a great idea. We don't have a formal process for that, but I mean, we have a team of Rett experts on the line right now with you guys. So if someone were to reach out to us and say, hey, we want to talk to an expert, we would definitely be willing to make that introduction and lean on you guys if you're available. So yes, that would be great. We'd be happy to help in any way we can.
Yeah, and you, to a certain degree, you can also pre-screen in terms of mutation type and et cetera. And so there will be a mechanism, basically, right? Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So here's a question. How would a biopharma company access the data to answer the questions? Yeah, so right now we don't have that set up. The data sharing aspect is not built yet, but that's what we're planning on doing in the next implementation phase. And so essentially there would be a data request process. It would be vetted. We would make sure that there's appropriate IRB approvals or whatever's required based on the research questions that are being posed. And then you would get a data extract, essentially, and you could work with that data extract in whatever way you saw fit. So that's our plan right now. There will be an oversight committee that will look at those data requests, and we'll have a formal process, but that hasn't been built out yet. But we're hoping to do that relatively soon. We wanted to wait until we got up to at least 500 participants in the data set before we make that data available for research requests, but that looks like it's going to be coming up relatively soon. So we'll need to get on that. Is it available to Belarus? You can access the registry from anywhere. It just depends on whether or not it's in a language that you speak and you feel comfortable completing the questionnaires in. We would prefer, if you're bilingual, that you answer the questions in your native language or one that you a language that you feel that you're fluent in. That would be ideal. You can access our YouTube channel if you want to see this recording on from our website. If you just go to reverserett.org, there's a link to our YouTube channel right on the website. How's your data saved if you fill in the registry? So as you answer the questions in the registry, your data are automatically saved to the system. So it's only when you exit the registry and come back in, you can pick up where you left off. But once you've answered the questions, that information gets associated with your account in the registry. So it's always saved. Okay. Did I miss any questions, anybody? Okay.
No, and we're over the hour.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for all of your time today. We really appreciate having everybody on the call. I want to especially thank Dr. Fu and Dr. Suter for joining us today and presenting this great data, and for Andrea for her beautiful demo of the system. I hope you guys all feel inspired and will help join us in our Cure Rett initiative, and will join the Rett Syndrome Global Registry. So thanks so much for your time. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you,
Bye-bye,
Jana.
everyone.
Hey,
Bye, everyone.
bye, everyone.